Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We've been looking forward to this all week. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Steve Grove, the Commissioner of Deed, and I'm really here just to get us started. Purpose of this conversation is just to get to hear from you about how things are going in your businesses and in this industry across the state. So I'm going to turn over to the governor to give some opening remarks, and the lieutenant governor as well. And then right after that, we'll do a quick round of introductions and start the conversation. So, Governor, over to you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Grove. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days and inviting us, in some cases, into your workplace or into your kitchen or wherever you end up on Teams. But we're incredibly grateful, first and foremost, for the jobs you create, the economic engine that is manufacturing. We wanted to celebrate Manufacturing Week. We were in person with you last year, and now more than ever, it's become glaringly apparent how important it is. We understand the challenges that you're facing, while a little bit different than a lot of others. You need to find more workers, and that is the thing that I think the state has always viewed ourselves as, in partnership with you, to make sure we're aligning workers and worker skills with the jobs that you are creating and that are available. And we know that all the data supports it. Manufacturing jobs pay more. They create good middle-class jobs. They create in our engines inside each and every one of your communities. So we are incredibly grateful. We wanted to hear from you. We've been on a several-week tour, some of it virtual, some of it getting out where we could, of trying to look at some of the things we put in place during COVID-19, what's next, what's working, what's not working, and what are the things that you'd like to see that would help you in your individual businesses. And so these roundtables give us a chance to share that. We like doing that, and I appreciate all of you for your candidness, and the associations are on here. I see Sandy and a few others, of keeping us informed as things are moving and communicating. And I think having members of the press to be able to hear those stories, to hear what's really happening, and then to see in us to be able to start getting some feedback and adjust what we're doing. So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Governor, and as the Commissioner said, we want to hear from you. So, Lieutenant Governor.
Great, thanks, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful to be able to be at this virtual table with all of you, since we can't be together in person. I've been traveling the state both in person and on Zoom, as many of us have been having conversations with folks, but with business owners and hearing directly from them, and it's been an incredibly valuable part of our work, hearing firsthand what's happening in Minnesota. And so, this opportunity to hear directly from you allows us to share those stories with Minnesotans more broadly, but also to share these stories and the impact of COVID-19 with our federal delegation and our partners in Washington, knowing that it is critically important that they hear what is going on in your lives and in the world of manufacturing as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days to be able to share your thoughts on the impact that COVID-19 has had on you and your businesses, your family, and community. But also, I hope that this is part of an ongoing conversation where we can figure out better ways to work together and partner. So thank you so much, and we're listening.
Great. Well, thanks, Lieutenant Governor. Before we begin our conversation, we just want to do a quick round of intros. So I'm just going to call off the names on our roster here, and if when you hear your name, you could just introduce your name and your affiliation, and we'll do it around the horn there, and then we'll come back and open it up for discussion. So let's start out with Marcia Danielson.
Good afternoon, Marcia Danielson, Vice President of Economic Development at South Central College.
Great, welcome. Mayor Cuffey. Mayor, are you on?
He is. He's on the phone.
Okay. You have to push
Maybe
star
we'll
6.
back to him.
Yeah, I think you might have to push star 6, Mayor, to get off of mute. We'll come back. Laura Ekstrom. Laura, I see you're on. Can you hear
Mitch,
us?
line 2. Mitch, please pick up.
All
I'll
right,
take
Laura.
Laura off mute if you want to keep going, Commissioner.
All right, sounds good. We'll go to Mary Hodson. Mary from the Hutchinson Chamber, you there? Or maybe we're having some mute issues here. So make sure if you are on video, click that little microphone button and that will unmute you. And I think if you're on the phone, it's *6 to unmute. I know many of you are used to Zoom. We use Microsoft Teams here in government, but do unmute if you can. Steve Kalina.
Yeah, I'm Steve Kalina here from the Minnesota Precision Manufacturing Association, or MPMA.
Let's go to Ed Bolus.
Ed Bolus, I'm the finance officer for Diecast Specialties in Starbuck, Minnesota.
Welcome. Let's go to Sandy Cashmark.
Sandy Cashmark, Executive Director for Midwest Manufacturers Association here in Elbow Lake, Minnesota.
Let's go over to Chuck at St. Cloud State.
I'm Chuck Kenchis. I'm an assistant professor at St. Cloud State University and work a lot with the youth apprenticeship program.
Great, welcome. And then Joel Bauer from Minnesota.
Joel Bauer, President, Minnesota Manufacturing, Trailer Manufacturing in Avon, Minnesota.
Welcome. And then Mary Hodson, can you hear us from the Chamber in Hutchinson?
Yes, I can.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Mary Hodson. I am the Chamber President in Hutchinson, Minnesota, where the governor is well versed in our Lake Marion ballroom.
And then Laura Ekstrom from Wasabi. Laura, can you hear us now? Okay, maybe we'll come back to Laura. And then Mayor Cuffey, I think you're on the phone. Can you hear us?
We're just connecting with him, Commissioner, to make sure there's no other difficulties. So we'll let you know.
Great. Well, hey, let's dive in. And again, this is our chance to hear from you. So I'll tee it up with a question. We're just going to open the floor and ask our panelists to dive in. And I'm sure the governor, the lieutenant governor will engage too as we proceed on questions so we can hear from you and learn from you about your industry. Maybe just to kick it off, what we're hearing from a lot of manufacturers in the state right now is that, in fact, you are hiring, even though we've got record high unemployment in the state. And so we'd be curious to hear a little bit about if that's the case from your perspectives and what kinds of workers you're looking for in our labor force. So we'll open the floor there and eager to hear from you.
So this is Steve Kalina with MPMA, and we represent the specifically precision manufacturers around the state, and so primarily we're in regulated industries. So typically we weather the storm a little better, but other than those few that are in aerospace that definitely have taken a big hit and are still hurting, I'd say, and I just actually looked at the number this morning, and I've had 430 some conversations since COVID started with manufacturers. So I get a lot of good intel, but most are saying that they're now kind of back to where they were prior to COVID, to 2019 numbers, maybe shifted a little bit, where maybe some, obviously aerospace related work might be down, but med device and defense, especially firearms, things like that are up. So most of them are right back to the same conversation we were a year ago of just how do we find people? And to your question, I'd say it's mostly the hands-on. As we found out quickly during COVID, most of us on the line weren't the critical people that needed to keep working. We could all go home and work from our offices. It was the machinists, tool makers, welders, fabricators, those people that were the most necessary. And those are the positions that are in extreme shortage right now. So definitely most shops are back to the hiring front. Definitely some shops did some layoffs during say May to July timeframe. So that freed up some resources to shift to other facilities. But across the board, I'd say they're back in the scramble to hire right now.
Thanks, Steve. That's helpful. Others?
This is Ed Bolus at Diecast. We're at about 60% of where we were, maybe 70% of where sales were a year ago. We're in a hiring freeze, or hiring right now, and we did not lay off people during COVID because we were participating in WorkShare, which is very helpful, but we can't find any applicants. We have two temp agencies we're working with, along with Deed, and there's just not anybody applying for a variety of reasons, I'm told.
What do you think some of those reasons are, Ed?
Part of it is lack of daycare out in this area. People are also afraid of coming back to work due to COVID, even though we've not had any issues, and Pope County is relatively low in our COVID issues. COVID infections. But there's a lot of competition in this area for people, but even in Alexandria, which is about 30 miles north of us, they're having a hard time finding employees also.
This is Sandy Cashmark with Midwest Manufacturers, and I'll offer an anecdotal comment follow up to what Ed was saying. There's a manufacturer in Greater Minnesota who often offers up a $1,000 hiring bonus for a machinist type position, and right now that offer is $2,000.
Wow.
This is Joel Bauer with Minnesota Trailer Manufacturing. We are definitely in hiring mode. The last 60 days, we've added 26 employees to our workforce. We've lost 5 of those just because working a regular shift didn't seem to fit their lifestyle at this point. And we could hire another 26 if they were coming in the door. The 26 we got, I would say 90% are strictly referral from internal workforce. We've added hiring bonuses, but hiring bonuses for our employees if they go out and find people to bring them in. And if they stick around and last, our existing employees who have put their effort into really making our business better and growing, we reward them and not the new employee for being here. That's worked well. Like I said, we had nobody coming in the door all summer for various reasons of what they were making. Well, they were not looking for jobs. After that went away, people started coming in, and it has almost all strictly been on referrals from our staff inside. We can't get anybody outside of that, our staff referring them in to come in and drop off applications.
Are you finding a different kind of worker applying now than say before the pandemic? One of the things I was wondering about is, given big layoffs in the service industry, for example, are there folks who had jobs in utterly different fields who are now looking at manufacturing, or is that not really happening yet? What's your sense of the kind of the labor pool there?
I would love to see them coming in the door. One thing we are very big on and very proud of is I could care less if they have welding experience or assembly experience for them to come in and help us build products. If they want to come be here at 6:30 in the morning and stay till 5 o'clock when their shift is, we will train them in any aspect and as long as it takes till they are comfortable and enjoy their job in the best way possible. We've got 140 employees. We've got 7 robotic welding cells. We've got 3 programmers for those that have 0 education in programming. They were all trained right here at our facility, and I'd put those programmers against anybody in the industry. Same with our welders. A lot of our best welders came in as concrete people or other experienced jobs that just wanted to work, and we will train until we're blue in the face to get them comfortable and working well. So we more than welcome people coming in with any background. If they just want to put the time in and are willing to work when they're supposed to be here until when they're supposed to leave so I can keep our schedule going, we'll take care of them from there.
I think Joel's comments are pretty much a common thread throughout most manufacturers. I think part of the problem was that most companies really appreciated PPP, and it definitely came in very handy for a lot of companies. But it also, caused a problem with those starting type positions. So if you've got an experienced manufacturer and they can come in and make $30 an hour, well, that's a pretty easy sell. But if you've got somebody who's maybe at the starting, like Joel talked about, somebody who's going to come in and learn, well, unless Joel's willing to pay them $30 an hour on day one, if you've got someone in that $20 an hour range, most companies were finding that those people were still just fine staying home collecting unemployment rather than taking the risk and going in and finding a job. So I think that created a little bit of a gap there where those entry-level positions, they just weren't able to shift from other industries into manufacturing, or they weren't willing to, I should say. I'll say another couple of comments I've heard consistently throughout manufacturers is companies that are 30, 40, 50 years old saying we're turning away work for the first time ever, and companies saying I would buy 3 machines and because of labor, and other companies or lots of companies saying I would buy 3 machines tomorrow if I had people to run them. So that's just kind of a common theme as well.
Yeah, you bring up automation, and I wonder, just as another component of this discussion, what kind of skill sets are you looking for in applicants, and how has that changed given such a rapid shift to automation in so many manufacturing floors? As you think about your ideal candidate, some of you have mentioned, just being there and working hard is a big component of this, but we know the industry is changing. What kinds of skill sets are you looking for?
I think one thing, I had a good conversation with Jody Greasing last week, and I'll put in a plug with you, Commissioner Grove, that please work with Jody to get the automation grant program renewed. Unfortunately, we weren't aware of it until it was too late. Jody had talked to me before it even launched, and then unfortunately, I didn't know it had launched until it was almost done, and then you got a surge at the end. But from my perspective as a manufacturer myself, one of the skill sets I really look for is not just having an automation technician or automation engineer. Those skill sets are great, but there's so many manufacturing companies that are smaller and trying to get started with the automation, an automation culture. And you don't do that by just going out and hiring an automation engineer. What you really need to do is take your skilled workers and get them more familiarized with automation so that you can take automated work cells that you already have in place and then be able to redeploy those for other operations. So that MJSP grant program was a great example of something you could do to help companies take their existing incumbent workers and help develop some of those automation skill sets that coincide with their machine skill sets, rather than just going out and bringing in automation resources. So I think that's a great resource for manufacturers.
Yeah, and maybe just a brief bit of context for those who haven't heard of this. This is an experiment we ran last year, an automation training incentive program focused on manufacturers of 100 employees or less, which is, by the way, 90% of the state's labor force manufacturing. It's really the smaller companies that comprise the industry, and giving them a little extra money to incentivize buying a worker on it. We agree with you, Steve. I think not just a pilot, but a steady program is something we're really bullish on based on the feedback we've gotten from piloting it. Thoughts from others on the panel on skills and the things you're looking for?
This is Laura Eckholm at L&M Radier in Hibbing, and I think that just playing off others' comments, we also have a bunch of training programs and apprentice programs. So our biggest thing is just getting people in the door that have some level of aptitude, wanting to work with their hands, maybe ability to read a tape measure, pretty basic skills that we can train. And we're not, we are down a little bit from last year. We have probably 30% down, and we have, at least in Minnesota, about 30 workers on furlough right now, but we did keep all of our machinists, welders, programmers, those positions. But we're starting to see things get better, and we will be looking soon, and we'll have the same issues as always, trying to find, enough people in the skilled labor area.
I reached out to some of our chamber members in Hutchinson and received the response back that skill sets in operations and maintenance were needed. And we continually hear about maintenance. With automation comes the need to be able to fix and create and build. And so that's a big piece for us in Hutchinson. We do have a unique situation, however, because we have 3M, which is the largest 3M plant in North America. So we have some production parts. So if you can, pass easy aptitude test, you can get a job there. And so we are seeing some opportunities for people there where they can go from one industry to another. But we still need those very specific vocations filled.
It's a great point. We were just last week up at the Iron Range at a solar panel factory called Helene, and you saw giant robotic arms moving panels around and major sheets doing automatic welding and all kinds of fabrication. And the workers were walking around monitoring the computers and fixing things that got stuck in the pipeline or tweaking things here and there. I think it's the whole nature of this has changed, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you hear from our educators. So Chuck, obviously from your perspective, looking at K-12 and career and technical education, that's an important part of building the pipeline. And then Marcia, obviously at South Central, thinking about programs you have for training folks. Tell us a bit about your work and kind of what you're seeing in the market in terms of student interest and some of those pieces.
Well, what we've done here at St. Cloud State the last few years, we've worked with CMMA on the Certified Youth Apprenticeship Program, which is basically allowing 16 and 17-year-old students to go into the manufacturing plant. And so it really starts that relationship between the business and industry and their school partners to start developing some of those skill sets for these students so they have a good relationship. They develop advisory boards with the schools so that they can understand, you talked about the certain skill sets that students need. Hopefully some of those things are getting addressed in the lower grades, 9 through 12, so they can walk in and have some of those aptitudes, reading tape measure, understanding the repercussions of being late for work and things like that. So what we've done the last few years at St. Cloud State here is we really developed, we call them sort of matchmaking, is trying to develop those relationships between our school districts and these local employers. So I think that's a real key, is trying to get a path, not just for right now, but for longevity, is getting students exposed to career and technical education classes at the 7th and 8th and 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, so they have an interest in it. And then some of them that don't plan to go to a 2-year school or 4-year school can go right into the workplace right from their apprenticeship program and go into their work and make a career out of it. So we've really trying to develop that pathway for our students, and we really think it's important, because coming from a four-year university, I would think everybody should go to a 4-year university, but they shouldn't. We unfortunately see too many students that walk through our door that are wasting their time and they're wasting their money, and they need to find out about these paths way before they're a senior in high school. They need to understand what a welder does in the 7th grade. They need to understand what a machinist does, what a programmer does, what a maintenance person does from day to day. So I think getting those opportunities for our students at the lower levels is really important.
Commissioner, if I could, at Governor Walczuk, all of these things you're talking about, and you've been doing this for years. Many of you have been trying to fill this pipeline. You've been talking about it. I guess my question is there any silver lining in COVID that finally this is starting to stick? And I just say, I've got an 8th grader at home and he's in distant learning or whatever, and he's viewing things differently. Like he really, they know they can get the stuff done just to get it in and get a grade, but they want to know how stuff works. I haven't seen him do that. Maybe that's just the point where he's at, of how things work, what's out there, what can I do? I'm just wondering if this push we've been trying to find, because I would just, and I'll defer to you on that, then ask Joel. I think it would be interesting, Joel, do you think most Minnesotans know there's that many jobs out there just sitting, waiting? It feels to me like they don't at all.
No, I would agree absolutely that they don't understand what is available out there. I mean, I've got 3 businesses around me here, and I could have a conversation with every one of them, and we could come up with 50 jobs here in Avon, little Avon, Minnesota, that could be had right now.
And you've kept, it does go back, because all of this is, we can't be out, we're in the inside of COVID. Manufacturing has done a good job stopping the spread and keeping workers safe. And again, that's not true of every industry. And I mean, it's heartbreaking for the hospitality industry, but by nature, that's close together, packed in. We get it. You've been able to do this much differently. So I think, I'm just curious if maybe this is a catalyst to kind of change this conversation that all of us, what Chuck just said, we all know to be true. And I know that not just as governor, I know it as a parent, that I need a skill that they can take and be marketable and get a job. I'm just curious if you think there's some possibility there, that if people are talking differently.
I think one of the things that I think developing those relationships, like I said, between the school districts and the business is helping. I think another thing that we really need to change too is the mentality of our parents. Many of our parents say, oh, you got to go to a 4-year university, you got to go for some kind of professional job. And they don't understand the opportunities that a welder, that a machinist, that these people can make a phenomenal career with little or no education and just some good training and hard work. And I think that's one of our obstacles too. And we've fought this for how many years, is that you can talk to the students all you want, but if they go home and their dad or mom says, no, you're not going to be a plumber, you're not going to be an electrician, or you're not going to be a welder, the conversation a lot of times stops there. And I think that is one of our biggest obstacles. And I think helping counselors, administrators in the K-12 system, just getting that word out helps. I think we've got a long ways to go when it comes to that.
Hopefully you hear us say that, Chuck, because I couldn't agree more with you. I'll tell you what, if my kids come home and say they're going to be a plumber, it's the happiest day of my dang life, because I know they're going to be employed. I know it's noble work. They can do a skill, they can get it done. So I just don't know if there's things we can do. We have training programs and things. Part of it is using the platform to continue to beat this drum, to tell people. I'm just wondering, though, as Commissioner Grove talks about, it's not as if when this is over and we get the vaccine that everything's going to turn back to January. There's some of these changes are going to be stickier. I mean, I don't see people doing a lot of business travel. I don't know if everybody who's working from home is going to go back. But the one constant is manufacturing is there. There's a desire to do it closer to home and keep those supply chains within our control a little more. I mean, there's just a lot of potential here of as the economy rearranges after COVID, that we're well positioned in manufacturing if we can simply provide the workers.
I think you brought up a good point, Governor Walls. I had a great conversation with Kevin Hoovey, an instructor at Alex Tech, probably close to 6 months ago now, and he had the foresight to kind of imply that back then, that we've heard the president, we've heard governors, we've heard everyone say how really healthcare has been kind of number one as far as being essential, of course, this year, but really manufacturing has been number two, and we keep hearing that. So I think we do as a state, especially, we need to come up with a way to market that as kind of a campaign to come out of this as kind of a Rosie the Riveter campaign to say, manufacturing was the backbone of our country during this time of great need. They came through, they were there at the front line, coming up with solutions, creating, building ventilators. I think we need to celebrate that. And, to Chuck's point, I mean, the parents are not there yet. I think the needle has moved a little bit, and that I was, Marine Corps too. And, I think the military support is similar to the manufacturing support, in that as parents, we say, well, I'll put a bumper sticker on my car, I'll send a care package, I'll support manufacturing. I know how important it is, but it's still, that needle has not moved much as far as, at the end of the day, I know what you say, Governor, as far as your kid being a plumber, a welder, or an electrician, but I don't know that we'll ever compete with your kid coming home and saying, hey, I passed the test, I'm a fighter pilot now, or I'm a brain surgeon. I mean, those are still going to be up there, but how do we make it more competitive with healthcare or IT or other, respected trades that are for skilled, talented people? But we have a long ways to go. And I think what we have to do, though, is focus on the numbers. You talk about it all the time with COVID, that we have to look at the numbers. And we're still not seeing it at the schools. I mean, the schools at the K-12 level are still down. Now, there's some great programs like Hutchinson and St. Francis and New Ulm and others that are doing great. But overall, we're still losing ground on the K-12 programs.
Yeah.
And then at the post-secondary, I haven't talked to a single school that's saying, yeah, our programs are going gangbusters, and the programs Chuck talks about are great, but are they really getting numbers in the seats at the schools? And I just talked to EJ Daigle at Dunwoody just before this call, and he said, their numbers are down. And it's just, COVID is taking a hit, of course, but overall, we're still not getting the numbers. We're not even close. And that window is closing where all of these baby boomers who are top talented individuals are going to be retiring. We're going to be losing I mean, there's companies that have 35% of their skilled workers are over 55. Yeah. And there's a major gap. And I'm talking about skilled workers. Those aren't people that get a apprenticeship or even a 2-year degree and are ready to go. we need 20 years to backfill for those people. So we're already, that window is already closing.
No, well said, Steve. And here's the added kicker to this. I think all of you know, and this is Minnesota's. This is why I think this is our moment. 70% of those jobs are going to be communities of color. If we leave behind our students with achievement gaps, if we leave behind and don't expose them to this, our Black students are going to be the ones that are filling these jobs. I mean, that's just demographic trend in Minnesota. And so I worry that there's a double whammy coming on this, that it's already an issue, was already a shortage. And those very students who could most benefit from this and our economy could most benefit are the ones that are struggling the most now in COVID, distant learning, and some of that. So we have got to figure out a way to connect those students with manufacturing jobs.
That's where I see oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is Marcia from South Central College. You know, a lot of you asked what can the state do, and a lot of the programs that you have in place, we're having a lot of success with here at South Central College in Mankato and Faribault. The MGSP program, we're one of the leads in taking advantage of that for our employers. This year alone, in 2020, a COVID year, we've got 7 employers and $1.9 million that's in play there to help them improve their growth of their company and our capacity as a college. The pipeline program is amazing. We've had 65 students at 20 employers putting those work-based learning skills in place. And that's so, you know, you talk about how do you want to bring people from retail or from the service industry. Apprenticeships is it, guys, in my opinion, because we had people who were in $10 an hour jobs with no benefits. And we were able to say through the pipeline program that if you come to South Central College, the employer will be benefited with the pipeline dollars. They'll help you with your tuition. You'll get a job. If you work 30 hours a week, you get full benefits at this. Most employers were willing to do that. So all of a sudden they're saying, wow, I got a $10 an hour job with no benefits, or I can go to school, get it paid for, work 30 hours a week, and come out of it debt-free at a $20 an hour job. That's exactly what's happening. And we started that with our TAC program. We also have taken advantage of national programs. The Second Chance Pell is for incarcerated individuals. And we are in the Faribault prison system right now with the mechatronics. You mentioned the maintenance. The mechatronics industrial maintenance certificate. We have certified 51 incarcerated individuals. We've got 2 success stories out of that I can tell you. Both individuals came out of that program into our mechatronics program, one into mechatronics, one into welding, and they now are employed in southern Minnesota, both making over $50,000 a year. This is an incarcerated individual from that to $50,000 a year in 3 semesters, guys. It's a good program. So those types of things. The last thing I want to say is about the high school students. One of the things that we did successfully, we got a National Science Foundation grant for a program where we develop trainers, and those trainers go into the high schools. You talk about the automation, and they are able to, through distance learning, to tap into our faculty and their faculty, and to work through having those hands-on training right there at the school. Well, we just received it. We haven't even announced it yet, but we just got the second NSF grant to now take that out into additional rural high schools and train those faculty how to work with those trainers. Those students could even take them home. They're that small. They're 2 foot by 3 foot. They've got fluid power on them. They've got PLCs on them. We're building these and we're taking them out. So a lot of solutions.
That's exciting. And I think now all of you should look at this, and that's the way we're viewing this. Now is the opportunity for us to reimagine how we do things. We're working cross agencies in government like we never have to get more efficiencies out and to bring more power to these issues. And I think in education right now, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for our teachers, parents, and students, but it's also an opportunity to reimagine. I know we've talked about this for years, but we're still doing things. If you'd have walked into a classroom in 1960 in America and you walked in it today, it's not all that much different. And the world certainly is. And I think now is our time to think, how do we do these things? How do we think boldly?
I think Dr. Danielson brought up a great point about apprenticeship, and that we're trying to find ways within MPMA to help companies figure out how to do that, because they oftentimes don't know how to do the training in-house. But one thing I'd like to, have an offline conversation at some point, but if there's some way we could do some maybe tax incentives for companies who invest in apprentices, because again, you talk about a lot of shops, as I think Commissioner mentioned, that 90% of shops are under 100 employees. Well, those companies aren't hiring 10 people at a time. They're hiring onesie twosies. And if you're going to hire one apprentice, you're also taking one mentor pretty much out of commission too. So there's a lot of companies that just don't know how to do that, and they don't have the resources. So if we can find ways to actually help them invest in that next, those next apprentices, that would be a huge help.
Laura, you
well, at the high school level is, yeah, I agree with your comment about 1960 till now not being that different, but really there were a lot of differences when we used to have the programs where you could go in the afternoon and work for those kids that weren't interested in going to a four-year college or any college. And I think something like that, looking at the high school level, looking at the grad requirements and so on. So there was more kids in the junior and senior year that would be able to do more programs that are not toward college, but more towards manufacturing or other skills as well. And kind of hand in hand with that is looking at the grad requirements, but then also having that go into the 2-year programs. And all the 2-year programs right now seem to be geared up to feed kids into a 4-year program, and that's not necessary. You don't need a 2-year program to teach somebody how to weld. So I think just looking at the requirements at all those different levels for kids, and then getting shop classes, welding classes, all that stuff in high school, that's huge, in my opinion. Absolutely.
Yeah, it boils down to that exposure again, that they need exposure. They don't know what they don't know. If they don't know that those opportunities are out there, they're not going to go into those areas.
Yeah, Laura, to your point, here in Albany now, it's been a few years we've worked with the school, and they've got a program where students can get into a lot of from the nursing home to the clinics to there's a concrete manufacturing, there's us as a steel manufacturer. They can get credit. They can leave early in the last block of the day. They can come and work for us and get credit, and they get checked on. But I think this is 4 years in, and I've had two students come and do it. I mean, they're going to get out of school, they can get credit, and then get paid if we want to pay them. And we still only have 2 students that have taken part of that. So there's opportunity. It's just getting them to buy into it and really understand the opportunities that are there for them.
Yeah, and I think that we have great success with our programs here in Hibbing and a couple of other schools, and we do a work-based learning program where the kids come in as part of their welding class, but just we don't have that where they can get credit. Although the career pathways, we're really we love that program and would like to do more of that. So we are doing a lot of those programs, but it's just not as widespread as I think it should be. And like you said, getting the kids exposed to that stuff is what's important, and earlier the better.
So the Certified Youth Apprenticeship Program, that's through MDE, that's where the students can get elective credits when they're out in the businesses. So if you're not familiar with that, I would go to the MDE website and check that out. But that's what we've been promoting here in central Minnesota for the last couple of years at St. Cloud State is that opportunity for them to get credit, and they can leave school. It's very flexible. It could be in the summertime. It can be in the morning, afternoon, whatever that is. So I think that's an opportunity that a lot of people don't know about. And I think, Joel, you talked about not getting a lot of students. I think you actually going into the school and talking about the opportunities. It isn't just through the teacher, but it's also through what you're saying, or students that have gone through it, go back into the school and tell about, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm making, this is a great opportunity. And getting that buzz of excitement with the students, I think, can help get that ball rolling a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I've gone there as much as I've been allowed to come in. We've had students here for tours, showing them our robotics, showing them, we've got some cool stuff, and everybody's surprised once they see a manufacturing facility. I'm 10 yards from Interstate 94, so thousands of people drive past my building every single day, and anytime I get them inside to see what we're doing, they're amazed. They say, I didn't realize you could be doing all that inside that building. So we are part of open houses and manufacturing days and everything we can get people through these doors to see what we're doing. And they're excited about it, and they leave excited, but they're not coming back with an application.
That's the part we have to figure out. Joel's exactly right. I mean, it still amazes me from, F-35 fuel pumps to, to canoes, to precision heart products, everything. We make it all, trailers, everything. And when you're in a modern manufacturing facility, it's an amazing thing. It also is very uplifting. People want to know we make things here. We make things in Minnesota. We make things in this country, and it inspires them. But somehow we've got to fill that pipeline. And of course, you all know, one of the problems is too, it's getting where the people are to where the jobs are, and they're not always aligned on that. Again, if we could have, and we have higher unemployment rates in the city right now, if we could find that, and I'm not asking people to give up their life and move somewhere else, but sometimes that's what you do. If the opportunity is there, you move. And I think what we find, especially with many of you, and we see it in greater Minnesota, living expenses are a lot lower. The opening wages you're talking about, and we just have to show that this is available, that there are opportunities. You like to hunt and fish, Hibbing's got opportunities for you. You want to be in the cities, we're manufacturing in North Minneapolis, and start thinking about how we start connecting those, because it's a disconnect in some places of where the workers are at, where the jobs are at.
And Governor, I think to that point, I actually wanted to come back to something that Ed said fairly early on, which was the challenge of lack of childcare around some of the businesses that we're talking to right now. I'm wondering if folks could sort of speak to that challenge.
Lack of childcare and lack of housing. I mean, we can't, there just isn't enough housing if you wanted to bring a whole bunch of folks up here, if when PolyMet gets approved and mining opens up and mining is opening up, but PolyMet, that's a huge problem on the range. There's just not enough housing. There's just not enough childcare.
You may have seen the grants that the Lieutenant Governor rolled out yesterday for additional help to childcare services. It's a step, but we hear this from employers just across the state. It's nowhere near enough.
And I think as much as we can start to reframe it as, childcare isn't a nice to have, it is the backbone of the economy. It is the workers who support the workers. So, this is certainly an ongoing conversation as we're talking about childcare and housing. Certainly, Laura, to your point, as we're looking for places where we can build out and expand and recruit more workers, we absolutely need to have those things in place.
Do any of you try to do on-site childcare or create partnerships with local providers? We've heard of some kind of innovative solutions, sometimes out of desperation, really, in certain businesses across the state. Any of you try anything like that?
I know in greater Minnesota, there just isn't enough of those to partner with. So that's the problem, the shortage. Yeah. We've had more closures than we've had openings.
Well, we want to make sure we get every last idea out of this group too, and so as we kind of come to a close of the conversation, I want to open the floor just for things you'd like to see your state government do to help manufacturers right now and help you on this journey to fill your opening spots. What are things we should be doing that we're not, or things we should be paying attention to that we maybe aren't?
And one thing I have now, Governor Walz spoke to it a little bit ago, talking about, it's not about necessarily if you want to move, but sometimes you have to move to where the jobs are. Is how can we incentivize and get that out to people that it's not always, I always want to have my ice cream before I eat, but sometimes I have to eat my meal first. So to incentivize to do those things, to go to where the work is, if it's not where we are, or take the job to start with that isn't the only job I want right now, and work my way into a new career, work my way back into where I eventually want to be when that becomes available. And I mean, there's different ways that I've thought of, but just to incentivize people to take that step, take the initiative on their own to do something, to take that step where the jobs are waiting for them.
Yeah, I think this goes to Chuck's point. It starts with parents, but it is cultural. And I opened the can of worms on this. If some of you are old enough to remember when Minnesota was looking at profiles of learning, There were components in there that were, how do you be on time? How do you accomplish things? And it was, and I say this coming from a profession, teachers weren't super excited about it, but in retrospect, I think we were ahead of the time. And I think the profiles were looking at that. And again, some of it's cultural. You're all seeing it. Nobody wants to start at the bottom and be the person that sweeps the shop floor. But that's kind of the way things work. And I think it's how we talk. I think we value all of the work, and we have to think about it. I think it's absolutely irrefutable. And in this case, we did it on purpose. We disincentivize people from going back to work to slow down the spread of COVID. But there's absolutely no debating that as that $600 kicker or whatever, which was keeping people paying their bills, it was also keeping people home because that's what we wanted them to do. Now we would like them to get back when it's safe to get back to work. And I think we have to be sure about that. You have to hear me talking about safe workplaces. You're right. People can't be forced back into bad, situations. But the fact of the matter is manufacturers done a really nice job of stopping the spread. And these are safe working conditions. And then again, the economy is reorganizing to a certain degree of showing people where there's opportunity. And again, I think with manufacturing, the thing that people miss, there's real careers here. Like those stories you're talking about, whether these were formerly incarcerated folks or down in Fairmont with Welding Academy. You come out of high school and, you work for McNeilius, and you make $50,000-$60,000 a year. You've got health care. You can buy that truck you wanted. You can do the things you want to do. And all of a sudden that life is right there. And I think that's something that's been missing. Again, there's jobs for everyone and there's skill sets, but manufacturing has always provided a better way to the middle class, more stability. And I think a lot of it, I'll go back to, we're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to show that we value it. We're going to have to do things, as Steve said, if it means there's tax incentives in there, or if there's ways that we're trying to get folks into it, we're going to have to help with that. But you're doing it. If you could get them in the door and they're willing to work, they're going to make a living and show that that's the way things really start to work, because then they do go down to the street and buy that car from the local car dealer or the local furniture store, and their kids go to school in the local schools. So I think it's cultural. I think it's disincentivized at times. During COVID, though, it gives us a real steely-eyed chance to look at how would we like to do things differently.
Well, Governor, that's maybe a great way to begin to wrap here. I know we want to take some questions from some of the journalists who've joined us as well. Governor, do you or the LG want to offer any final thoughts for the roundtable before we open it up for questions from the press?
No, I'm just grateful. And this is, many of you have been gracious, opened your doors. We continue to travel and see you. I will do the best I can to beat the drum on this. I'm a huge believer that this is the key to our economic success. We have a diversified economy, but manufacturing and making things here is always a piece of it. Some of us of a certain age, we were told that all those jobs would be gone and we better get a 4-year degree or we'd be working low-paying service jobs. Well, that's not true. There is a whole different opportunities, and we'll do the best we can to keep pushing that mantra. Lieutenant Governor, anything before we have the press? And I think they'll probably want to ask the manufacturers questions.
Great. No, just thank you so much, everyone, for your time. This is clearly a ongoing conversation, and it's been incredibly helpful to hear directly from all of you. So thank you.